Hi.
Hi.
Well, here's our switchboard that we were working on here.
All
This is
right.
what I was telling you about. Everything has now been removed from the key switch you see down there, which is mangled by previous owner. I mean, they really butchered just some things. All the wiring that went to all the switches, or all the lights, was all cut off at the ends. Now, the good news is the wires are there, but all the end connections are all missing. And all that came out because that mess of crap was what the previous owner had added to try to make up for the difference.
Oh, geez.
Just total garbage. Well, this panel, I've since got it rewired, and there is just, essentially this is an adapter harness that I had made that you see on the back here. Now, I haven't finished screwing into the dashboard. That is something that I'm going to do. But everything now has proper shrink wrap on this. In case something does come disconnected, it's not going to short out. Some of these things still need to have a little shrink wrap on them. We're not done yet, and I'm going to fix that. I don't like the way that pulled out, but it is still functional in its current state, but we're going to get that done also. This red switch on the left here, you can flip that open and turn it on, and you see the engine start light lit up. And also the idiot lights on the dashboard lit up because I've got that wired up to it. Currently, everything is armed, which means the engine is powered. So you have power at the coil, which means that thing is ready to start. So if you hit that start button, that thing should crank.
May I?
Go ahead. That's all there is to it. Now you'll notice that that light goes out because it's connected to the oil light switch. Just a clever little feature that I decided to add to it. Give them a little gas there. A little gas down on there. There you go. There you go. It's a little cold, and it has no chokes on the carburetor, so it's a little cold-blooded, but that's why it runs the way it does. Now that light, of course, will come back on if the oil pressure goes down for any reason at the same time as the other idiot light comes on. The generator light that's on there is currently on also. I haven't figured out the wiring yet that's causing that to stay on. So there's something in circuit that's not right that I have not been able to figure out. I haven't gotten that far yet anyway, but everything is currently working, and if you flip that red switch back down, everything goes back off. And of course, if you turn it back on, there we go. We now have no oil pressure, so the engine start light is on. And I kind of did that as a little intuitive thing, because if people are driving with you and they see the lights on the dashboard, the stupid monkeys are going to start pushing buttons. And we already know what sound it makes when you push the start button when it's already running. Right. It's just a horrible, horrible noise. So with the light out, I think people would be less likely to do that. And for whatever it's worth, it's got a little bit of a redundancy, so you have an oil light that comes on that's a little more obvious than a tiny little one on the dashboard. I've known countless people that ignored the oil light and blew an engine. And one such guy was one that I put an engine in the car for him. He went around the corner, and on the way home, about halfway home, the oil light comes on, he just kept driving. It's like, yeah, I'll put some oil in when I get home. It's like, no, it's too late. It's too late. The moment that light comes on, you gotta turn your engine off. There's a little bit of film left, so your engine won't destroy itself immediately, but within seconds, under a minute, way under a minute, you're gonna start getting some serious engine wear. And, well, he didn't listen to what I told him to, and he cooked the engine. Yep, all the bearings shot out the bottoms of the big ends on the crank, and, yeah, it was just not pretty. Not pretty at all. Welcome back to DuckmanCycles and VW Garage. I'm your host, the Duckman. We're back today with a 1971 flat windshield Super Beetle. As you probably remember from the last video, this thing was a complete wiring disaster. You can tell by the wiring up on the roof here, this is the stuff that I removed from it from the last video. And no sooner I shut the camera off and I thought I was done, I still found myself pulling more wires out of hidden cavities and compartments and things that just weren't hooked up. There was just crap everywhere in this car. So at this point, the only thing that I believe is remaining is what's left of the stock wiring harness, which I think I can truly repair. I'm not too worried about having to replace it, and I'm trying to save the cost of having to get that far. But I think at this point, what we've got is just a matter of piecing things back together, putting things back the way they belong, and to me, it's really not all that hard. Now, I think today what we're going to do is we're going to attack the thing that's one of the things that's most simple. It doesn't even have a fuse on it. And that is, let's get the engine to run. I, once again, trust that it's going to run, but I don't know anything about the condition of this engine, other than it does seem to have clean oil in it. and it appears to be up to level. It doesn't look like it's got any moisture or water down in the crankcase that I can tell, but of course I didn't pull the drain plug off of it. You know, only time will tell if it starts blowing out a whole bunch of steam from the vent when we start getting this thing warmed up. Some folks crabbed a little bit about me making fun of Mopar, Ford, and Chevy guys. Some Chevy guys said make fun of the Ford guys, some Ford guys said make fun of the Chevy guys. The Mopar guys seem to feel that, they don't have a problem with anybody else. I like that. You know, maybe I'm going to align myself with the Mopar guys. But a few people said, you know, why don't I make fun of the Hyundai guys or the Honda guys or, you know, some other Japanese manufacturer? And the reason why is because I'm not on a Japanese guy's radar. Japanese car people don't buy Volkswagens. They don't get into Volkswagens. They want all that technology, all that new stuff. You know, they're not interested in something like this. This to them is garbage, trash. They wouldn't even touch it. So it's kind of out of the ordinary for me to be a Japanese car owner that actually does have a Volkswagen. But I appreciate all kinds of different things. You know, I mean, I would even get a Ford, Chevy, or a Mopar if I'd find something that I truly like. And I gotta say, Mike's Roadrunner that I helped him load into his trailer gave me a little tickle. I don't know if there'll be a Roadrunner in my future, but I kind of like it. I also rather like an old Dodge Challenger, so we'll see what happens when time comes. But, you know, on this thing, I want to make it run. We got Biddy inside squawking in case you're curious. But like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to pluck the dingle belly so you get updates every time I upload a video. Check out duckshit.net for all my different social media links. Let's go ahead and jump on this thing and see if we can get some smoke coming out of that exhaust, because I don't know what we're going to find. I really don't. Thanks for watching. Okay, I went and I grabbed this coil wire and I started wiggling it, and if you look down in there you can see that fuse block that I was pulling on earlier. Yep, that's connected to that wire, so that's the reason why we have no spark. It's not actually hooked up. Okay, well, we're gonna try to see if we can get it back into the stock wiring harness the way it's supposed to be. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rewire that bullshit switch under the dashboard, since the ignition switch, or the key, has been removed. This is a rat rod, so that's okay. We're not worried about security or theft on this thing. There's ways to prevent that anyway. But yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna try to rehook this the way it's supposed to be. All right, this red wire was routed way up under the side over here, under the J-tube, but it's not melted, which tells me that these guys never got this thing running. And probably because, well, they didn't get the electrical hooked up properly. But anyway, guess we're gonna figure that sucker out. Okay, over here on what's left of the factory harness, we have a blue wire, which was connected to the oil switch, but I accidentally unplugged it when I pulled this up. There's a white wire in here, and I don't know what the hell it goes to. I'm gonna have to check the schematic on that. I got a green wire in here, which I think originally went to the generator. You know, I'll have to figure that out too. If that's the generator field coil wire, then the alternator needs to be hooked to this and not wherever the hell it's going, so I'll need to figure that out too. Anyway, we'll put that back on when we get to it. But this black wire here should be hot. This one should be the one that goes to the coil. And if we're lucky, we should have juice. We do! Okay, so what's left of this positive wire that I just cut, I need to splice these two together. Alright, this positive wire that comes from the, technically it should come from the ignition switch up front. And by the way, yes, I did shut the circuit back off. Is not fuse protected, and that's not by previous owner or something else. This was actually Volkswagen's design. They're the ones that decided not to make that fuse protected, and this is one of the reasons why the coil wire will often burn up in a car, because the engine vibrates and things get unplugged, and that little connector can fall off and then touch the metal of the air shroud or something else that's grounded out, and then burn the entire length of the car. And I've known people that has happened to. And just one wire, which is faulty in the harness, will take the entire harness out, because any wire it's in contact with in the harness will also burn up, and they all melt. So the entire harness is shot after that. And I've seen many harnesses where people try to patch that crap. And it's really ugly when they do. Alright. Looks like this piece of shrink tubing that I put on here is too small. Let's try a bigger one here. It's a slightly higher gauge wire. We're not soldering these, and we should. But we're not soldering these. And that's because this shrink tubing is actually really good stuff. This thing holds the wires so tight, I haven't had them fall apart since I've been using this. But in time, I may come back and I may resolder these things, but we shall see. Anyway, there's our connection, ready to go. Now we just need to heat it up. And I found that a lighter just doesn't get hot enough, but a nice torch, low torch with a blue flame, melts it up in a hurry. There it is. Okay. Now, if I got everything set correctly here, we should have juice going to the coil. Let's connect our oil light. Our oil light wire goes down to the oil switch down here. And then our distributor green wire also wasn't hooked up. I probably pulled it out by accident. That goes on there. All right, let me turn the power back on, and then we'll test to see if we still got power at the coil. Yeah. Whoa! And that wasn't supposed to happen. The steering wheel has always been really loose. I guess we're gonna have to fix that before we go any further. Imagine, I actually drove this thing behind a guy with a Rob with a tow strap, following him home, and wow, now it's really loose. The nut, yeah, I see the nut in there. It must have been on its very, very last turn of thread, and maybe not even. It wasn't even tight at all. I can actually see the nut in there. Anyway, we're gonna come back to that. That is just disgusting. Here's the switch panel we got put in here. I got the on switch set up. Right now, that should give juice back to the coil. I'm gonna have to check the factory wiring on there to see if there actually is power coming out of it. But it is truthfully connected properly to the fuse box up front using the wires that I've pulled from the stock wiring harness and connected to these switches that are on here. So, well, I guess just we'll have a look at it and see if it's gonna be even worth a damn. Alright, we're turned on. Yep, we got power at the coil. Ooh, made a spark too because I accidentally grounded it out. Alright. If all things are set up correctly, and this engine isn't a complete damn disaster, it might just run. It does have plenty of oil in it. I've already checked. For those of you that don't believe me and you want to see, there it is. It's between the two lines. It's plenty. It should be okay. I'll top it off when we get this thing running. There doesn't need to be a huge volume of it now. It just needs to be enough to lubricate. But it's got oil, so that's already set. We already know that it should crank because I hot wired it in the last video. But we're gonna wire that up to the switch inside, so let's see what happens. It's kind of nice that this steering wheel is pulling off because now it's not in my way and I can show you what we're doing with the wires here a little better. We got our oil light down there. We're gonna check for that first. We are currently lit. That means it is hooked up properly. Well, it means it should be hooked up properly. Unless that sucker is grounded out somewhere else, it shouldn't be. What I also did was I hooked our start light to the oil light. So this should go out once the engine is running. So they're both hooked in parallel. For those of you who don't understand electronics, maybe you should Google what a parallel circuit is. If this is wired correctly, it should start cranking the moment that I push that button. There's a few things in here that I don't like this is kind of coming apart. So I'm gonna retwist that wire. I might even just, solder a little bead on there and then go ahead and tighten it back in the way it belongs. The great thing I noticed about this car is there was absolutely no gas smell at all in the gas tank and the fuel lines were completely dry. So hopefully this thing was run dry the last time it was actually run, so there shouldn't be any nastiness in the carburetor and there should be no other things in the fuel system that should be causing any issues. First, we went ahead and cranked over the engine to make sure we had some oil pressure. Very, very important on an engine that we don't know the history of. Looks like we're good, so we're going with it. All right, we're just gonna pull this air cleaner off temporarily. Kind of neat how that works. There's a little cage in there that stops the foam element from getting sucked down onto the carburetor. Give it a little sploosh. Juice it just a little bit. Come on, splash. Splash. Oh. Splash. Yes, there's a fire extinguisher not but 20 feet away from me in the garage door. Alright, let's go ahead and crank them. So I cranked it, and I cranked it, and I cranked it, and I cranked it. Cylinders. Not sure yet if it's ignition or if it's one side of the carburetor not doing what it's supposed to do. So we definitely got a misfire. There was the troubled cylinder in the first try. Okay, guess you got a little bit of figuring out to do, but it runs. That's good news. And it didn't sound like it had a bad rod or anything like that. It sounded fairly smooth, I guess. I guess one of the first things we'll do is we'll check the timing. I'll also try swapping the spark plug wires, which I'm noticing are way too long on this side. These are right-hand side spark plug wires, not left-hand side ones. So I'll take cylinders 3 and 4 and I'll swap them. Of course, swapping them on both the cap and the plugs, because I'm not a damn dunderhead. And see if it runs any better. Maybe it's the wire's fault. Might be as simple as that. Maybe we'll even change out the distributor cap. Which, you know what, it's a little damp inside of there. Just a little bit, because it was raining yesterday. Yeah, it's just a little wet in there. That might have everything to do with what was wrong. Okay, well, we're going to make a couple of adjustments here, and maybe we'll get lucky. But yeah, it was definitely a little wet in there. Well, that didn't take very much. It was just the distributor cap was wet on the inside. That's all. No more backfiring, no more misfiring, no more weird stuff, no more idling down and sputtering out. It's still cold, so it probably needs to warm up a little bit because it's got no chokes on it. It is shaking a little bit as a result, but I think it's going to be okay. Sounds a whole lot better than it did. Probably going to have to adjust the idle, that don't sound right. Don't think number 3 is firing correctly. Now, I'm sorry, not number 3, number 4. Number 4, okay, well, let's just start by switching these wires between 3 and 4. Maybe it's a spark plug wire. Before we start ripping spark plugs out, we start checking things that way. And the header was a little warm, so it was firing a little bit. There was definitely something wrong with the distributor cap, so I'm probably, wasting my time because I probably should just change the distributor cap out and not mess with this. But let's give it a shot anyway and see if it makes any difference. Nope, no difference at all. Alright, let's change out the cap. I was told some absolute bullshit in the last video by people that suggested that this car was just full of junk and that I never should have accepted a car so full of junk. Well, you guys aren't thinking, which is typical when I get that kind of a comment, because all that junk goes to this car, and a lot of it is spare parts for making things work again on this. So for me to... I hate these caps. They don't need to be in there. That's not even a Volkswagen Beetle part. I think they come out of a rabbit. I always have trouble getting the cap to sit properly. Anyway, the piles of junk in this car are actually for this car. So what am I supposed to use for spare parts if I need them? Pretty dumb, if you ask me, to just take everything out and get rid of it. Alright, number one right here. We got number two. Goes over here. Number 4, and there's our cap that was a little bit wet. In fact, it's still wet. There's still water coming out of it. Hoping that's the problem. Could very well be. Alright, here we go again. Oh yeah, that was it. That was definitely it. That sounds a lot better. Still idling a little shaky. I was hearing a little knocking that sounded like it was coming from the outside of the engine, and that's what it is here. I loosened up the belt on the alternator. It looks like the pulley isn't even attached properly, so I'm gonna have to dig into that and fix that stupid thing as well. Man, it's endless with this car. Nothing on this car was done right. I'm gonna have to go through every single thing on this car. Wow. Well, it looked like the nut just wasn't tight on it, but that key is destroyed. You see it's all lopped over. It's no longer square anymore. The keyway on here actually looks like it's still in pretty good shape. It's a little beat up, but I think it'll be okay if I just replace the key and then tighten it down correctly, which is the main problem that we had here. That nut just wasn't tight at all. All right, let's replace one of them. I should have one of them around. All right, it's tightened up properly now. No more play. Let's go ahead and put our belt back on. I knew something wasn't right when I was hearing that little sound. It was resonating through the shroud on here. Didn't sound like it was, internal. It definitely sounded external to me. Oh, come on, you damn belt. I have not used one of these serpentine style belts before on here. This is all new to me. It's on a Volkswagen anyway. I mean, the one on my Z is clearly not new to me. I've had that car now for 17 years. But they should get it all snug back up. All right. Tighten that back up and then we'll get into trying to run this thing again. Okay, under closer evaluation, it looked like this clamp under here was threaded, and the threads are long since gone. And there's a nut on the back of it now. That's something I added. The bolts are really long, like maybe they were always supposed to have a nut on it, and it's actually flush with the back of the nut once I tighten it up. So I don't know. If I ever got one of these, I would definitely nut up the back.
Oh my.
It just seems like that's how it's supposed to be. Okay, this is good. No more knocky stuff. Should be all right. Let's go ahead and start chasing that cylinder number 3 problem, which is weird because it was 4 that was misfiring with the bad cap that was wet, but 3 was running. We replaced the cap, and then it was vice versa. So I don't know. I got to dig into this a little further. Let's figure it out. Went to pull out spark plug on cylinder number 3, and it was loose, to my surprise. Anyway, once I got pulled out, I looked at it, and there was a whole bunch of little like hairs in between the electrodes on it. It does look pretty well blackened, so it's was at some point running really rich, or maybe really sooty because of oil. His engine didn't appear to be smoking though, so I don't know what it is, but we're gonna try to unfoul this plug, which by the way is an NGK. Some people like to complain, well, those are threaded differently, it's gonna ruin your German engine. That's bullshit. This plug should work fine as long as we can unfoul it. So I'm just gonna hit it with the torch. We're gonna light it up red hot. We're gonna screw it back in. We're gonna torque it down properly. And then we're gonna try to run this engine again and see if it comes back to life. All right, let's put it back in. It's pretty clean now. It still seems to be running a little bit weak on cylinders 3 and 4, so I figure the next step is to remove the valve cover and let's check the valves. I've checked everything else that I can on the outside. If that cylinder still is not firing, it's only one of, well, 2 things that it probably could be. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? I think that's going through a seal. I don't have to turn that all the way. It's either going to be the valves, or it's just going to be a shitty spark plug. So before I start replacing parts, let's just have a look in here. I had a feeling that was going to happen. I probably should have got a better pan for underneath this. I didn't think that much oil was going to come out. Oh man. All right, pull the seal out of here. We're at top dead center for cylinder number 4, and these valves are very loose. But I don't see anything that looks like a broken spring or anything out of the ordinary. This is kind of a no-no because everything's warm, but I'm gonna go ahead and adjust the valves anyway. I'll just readjust them later as necessary, and that's just for this side. Of course, I'll get back to the other side in a minute. But that would probably suggest that the spark plug that I've got in here then is just a piece of crap. All right, let's give this thing a quick valve adjustment and see what happens from there. Anyway, we got those valves all adjusted here. Listen to this. That's right. Nothing to it. So I did both sides. They seem to be good. I have not done 1 and 2 on the other side, but we'll get to that in a minute. Otherwise, as long as this thing doesn't leak, I think this should be okay. Next thing I'm going to attack is I'm going to replace that spark plug. I don't know what else it could possibly be that's just not firing on that. It had plenty of compression though. When I had my finger on the cylinder when I turned it over, man, it blew my finger right off of it. So yeah, compression is there. And sorry about the noise, you guys. They're running a tractor, and for whatever reason, they're covering their entire yard in railroad rocks. I don't know, totally tacky, but not my design. Anyway, we'll get back on this. And oh yeah, people complain about me making noise. No, this is the kind of crap I hear. They run that tractor pretty much every day, so I'm not complaining. And nobody complains about me over here either. Anyway, let's see what else we can figure out here. That's where we're at. Valve cover's got to go back on. Anyway, we lost a couple ounces of oil from behind that cover, but I don't think it's anything that's going to kill us today. I put that distributor back together. There we go. And that. Yeah, I put the old cap back on. This is the cap that wasn't running on this cylinder when it was wet. Now that it's had some time to sit open, I put it back on. All right, well, let's see if the valve adjustment makes any difference here. I don't think that's going to get it. I still think it's that spark plug. Well, let's see what happens. Well, I'll be damned. That That got it. That's all 4 cylinders. I also tighten up that belt, so no more squealing. I think we're good. Once the engine cools down, first thing in the morning, I'll readjust all the valves. But otherwise, I trust it now. I'm gonna burn off the oil that's sitting on the J-tube under there and when I pull that cover off, but other than that, I'll just let it sit a minute and should be good to go. Well, I guess there's one thing I gotta do yet. I gotta put this back in. Once the steering wheel's in, I can do something that I haven't done before with this car, and that's drive it to a different part of the yard. That'd be nice. It's killing my grass. Let's see here. I don't think the steering wheel's gonna go on straight, but we're gonna do the best that we can. Now, this is something that it appears to be missing a component, a spacer or something. This was just a total bullshit hack job. I'm looking at the back and it looks like they used the hub from a stock steering wheel and cut it off. Drilled it, tapped it, no, just drilled it, and ran about 6 bolts haphazardly into it. Guess I should take it apart and look to see what's inside of it. I brought the right tools out for this thing. There's one. Yeah. Got a socket to take these bolts off. And they're not even tight. After all that crap, they're not even tight. Yeah, so this was total bullshit. Once again, total bullshit. This whole car has been bullshit. Or if you took this to a shop and had somebody do this, you'd be paying a fortune right now for what I'm doing to fix this thing. Oh, nice. Well, first off, there's the nut. And look at the hub inside of there. Total butchery. I would have easily just put this on a lathe and just cut it out, but that is just total and complete nonsense. Oh my God. All right, well, this appears to be solid. These bolts appear to be tight too. The hub also looks to be pretty straight and pretty well centered considering the butchery in there. It looked to me like something was missing from in here. There's a bearing that presses into the housing. Then it looked like there was a spacer. So I made one. It's supposed to go from the bearing to the hub. And this is probably one of the reasons, aside from the nut being loose, that the entire steering mechanism, looking to see if my wheels are straight. I'm trying to assume where this is supposed to be. You know what, if I don't get it right, I'm just gonna have to make adjustments, take it back off and move it later. But that space in there, I feel this is a unit now. It's solid. There's no more of this loose steering wheel shit that we've had problems with before. So we'll put this nut on the center in the hub. And then just do that. And start tightening this thing up. And what will happen, the steering rack will move to making a full right turn, and once it hits lock, then I can start tightening it up. What else is ratchet doing? It's at the end now. There it is. That's as far as she goes. As a unit, that feels nice and solid. The housing here does need to have the depth set on it, because there actually is a gap you're supposed to have between the steering wheel and the housing. There's a little screw that's up underneath the column there. We'll get to that last. I dropped one of these screws down here somewhere when I was taking this apart. Well, that sucks. Guess I need to try to return the wheel to center. I think that's it right there. Alright. We got our Punisher logo, which is not a horn button. Return to the center of the wheel. There it is. That should go in there just like that. Now, sorry, Rob, your skull's not straight. Actually, that's easy to center. Alright, that's not so bad. One of these stupid bolts was missing anyway. Now two of them are missing because one is somewhere else here in the car. And I can almost guarantee you both of them are here in the car somewhere. These also look like cheap Chinese bolts, which I will bet you are really soft metal. And if I over tighten them, they'll probably strip or screw up. I think I see that lost bolt down here. I'll try to rake that out. Otherwise, I pull this housing up to where it needs to be. Steering wheel is now as tight as any other Volkswagen. Good. Okay, I gotta tighten up the bolt up underneath here, but now it's safe to drive. It's no longer going to just kill me. Alright, well that's good. Let's see if it starts. To the alternator. Let's go check that out now, actually. Yes. Otherwise, we're in good shape. Things are starting to work again. Alright, I started cutting open this wire bundle over here. We have the red wire attached to the brown. That means the red one should be grounded. The green one is connected to a green wire way up over here. But when we go over to the alternator, you notice the green wire is connected to ground, and the red wire is attached to the dummy light wire. This is supposed to be grounded, not the other way around. So clearly that was not wired right. Now I hope that didn't fry the alternator. What I'm going to do is I'm going to swap those two wires. And then hopefully the alternator light on the dashboard will turn off. Put a piece of shrink on there. A piece of shrink on here. Green. Gonna go to brown because that's our ground. All the kids are acting like little apes behind me, and they're climbing on the tractor that belongs to the neighbor over there. If I catch them climbing on my cars, it's gonna be hell to pay. But not my monkeys, not my circus, not my tractor, not my yard, not my property, not my problem. Alright, there we are. That should get us wrapped up. Hopefully the alternator's not fried from all the stupid BS that we've found in here so far. Again, this makes a nice blue flame, which is hotter than a lighter, and it'll shrink this wrap a whole lot quicker than waiting for a damn match or a lighter to get it. This takes way too long. This stuff must be high temperature wrap or something, which would make it good for the engine compartment. There it is. All right, we're all wrapped up. Green goes to red, which goes to the generator dummy light. Green goes to brown, which goes to ground over here. This is correct. This wrap that's under here, we will rewrap this. I don't have any red electrical tape, so Rob's just gonna have to do with some nice split loom instead of this trash. The ant's climbing on me here. All right, we'll come back to that. Let's fire it up. Ooh, before we do that, let's put the coil back on. I forgot that I had taken that down because it was in my way. Okay, if I got this correctly, you see my generator light, you see my oil light, start button is also an oil light. Both of those lights should go out once this thing starts up. There they go. It should be now charging the battery effectively. I will check the voltages at the battery just to be sure we're getting our 13.8 volts, roughly 14 volts, maybe 14.4, but no more than. If that's all good, then this thing's ready to rock and roll. I'm glad it was as simple as just swapping those two wires, but man, that kind of stuff could cook things. All right, well, here we go. Yep, and it does what they typically do. The generator light will flash when you shut the car off. All right, well, I'm happy. Let's move on to the next thing. Well, it's still not 100%, but I managed to drive it to where it's at. That's a huge improvement. Gonna let the engine cool down overnight. As we know, we're gonna adjust the valves on both sides properly while the engine is cold, and we're gonna go through it one more time. Otherwise, yeah, it might be okay after that. Much better. I just made a couple of mixture adjustments on the carburetor. Now it's running much more evenly. Yeah. Still not 100%. What was wrong. Apparently it was just out of gas. Gonna let it warm up a little bit, it should be fine. And just in time for it to start raining. Yep, you can smell it on the air, street lights have come on. Raining, raining. Just gonna be another rainy day. So I guess that's it, we're gonna wrap up this video. So thanks everybody for watching, likey, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to plug that dingle belly so you get updates every time I upload a video. And check out duckshit.net for all of my different social media links. Just gonna still try to stall here. But again, it's not warm yet. It was sitting for a little bit while I had to go get the gas. Anyway, I guess that's it. We'll have some more coming up when we get these valves adjusted on here, and we'll play with a few settings on the carburetor and see if we get this thing running a little bit better. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.